So hi everyone, I'm Isabelle, with the community coordinator for French Tech Seoul. I guess that most people online already know me. So just for this webinar, we decided to set it up as a topic mostly COVID, but also post-COVID, because here in Korea, we're mostly starting to learn from what happened. And we wanted to make this webinar more on lessons learned from COVID, but also from any other crisis. So we invited Alain from Germinal, who is a member of French Tech Seoul, and he will introduce and let us know about how Germinal, as their business is mostly related with big corporation or startup, how they saw how different type of companies and businesses reacted to the crisis and how some of them evolved from it. And then he will ask us, introduce about how they did at Germinal and give us a few tips and views on in the future how to prepare yourself from this type of crisis and recover and see how the world will change a bit after this one, as we can already see some trends that are changing, especially online. So for that, we will have Enzo from Le Wagon Seoul, and we're in their offices, and we have this nice view over near GDP. And Alain, who's in actually Paris right now, blocked.
Not a nice view here.
So yeah, I will pass
the mic.
To Enzo to do all the rest. And don't hesitate to, as I said, to share your question or even comments on the chat. We can see everything and we can react to your question.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Isabelle. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So as Isabelle said, my name is Enzo. I'm the director and founder of Le Wagon Seoul. So Le Wagon is a coding school, and we offer very intensive coding programs to learn to code in 9 weeks. So to become a full stack web developer in 9 weeks. We are present in 24 countries across the world. And we've been in Korea for a few months now, and we're very excited to discover this new market that is Seoul in South Korea. And I'm very happy tonight to be interviewing Alain from Germinal about these very important subjects that we all face now, knowing that we all have to adapt, facing this very global crisis. And we'll see how everyone is shifting to online marketing and online consumption. And I'm very happy to have Alain to tell us more about this. So Alain, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for everyone to be here. It's happy to get to talk to some people right now, because as I just said, I'm right now in France and locked down for a while. So to give you a bit of background, I'm head of Asia at Germinal, and we are a French company specialized on growth. So we work on acquisition strategy and execution for some of the leading French and international brands, like for example, L'Oreal, KPMG, Mars, Schneider. We also work with a startup, mostly post-fundraising, and either to accelerate their growth or help them launch new countries, new market, new products faster. So that's what we do. And yeah, talking about the COVID-19 crisis, we are one of the company that took a very serious hit from the crisis, because to give you an idea, we lost about 70% of our revenue overnight. This happened just after a recruitment batch, so it was not the best time for us to experience that type of crisis. And since we are totally bootstrapped, we are a 30 people company and fully bootstrapped. For us, there was a real need to adapt very quickly, and the emergency was real.
Wow, you said 70%. That's quite a lot. Are your clients mostly large corporations or startups?
Yeah. it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot, and yeah, we work with startups and large corporation. Most of them are selling online. So actually, we've been a bit surprised by the like the importance of the crisis for us, because most of our clients, I mean, their business model at the time, they were not really affected directly by the crisis because they were selling online. As you might know, in France, we are in a complete lockdown. We didn't do as well as Korea as a country to handle the crisis, and the only moment we can go out right now basically is everything is closed, and the only moment we can go out is to go to supermarkets to buy primary goods and fight for toilet papers. That's pretty much the only occasion we have to go out right now. And so we have some of our clients that were directly impacted by this crisis because they depend on a physical network. Like, for example, we had a drive-to-store campaign for L'Oreal that was sending people to try on makeup at a partner store. So this is not possible anymore. But those companies, they represent maybe 10 to 15% of the ongoing mission we had at the time. But still, we had clients who haven't been directly impacted by the crisis because they were selling online and the campaign were performing quite well. I mean, quite okay. That was really reasonable. But just because of the panic and the uncertainty, they decided to cut everything overnight, and everybody was in full immobility in the market.
Well, okay, so really, like, it happened very, very fast. So you must have had a very little time to adapt. What were your decisions, and how did you manage to adapt to this situation?
Yeah, it was quite we had quite a short time. I think mainly the action we took to face this crisis, they are based on very fundamental beliefs that we have at Germinal. That, you know, we have a very strong culture at Germinal, a really radical culture, and we believe that this culture is really something that is important. We believe that the culture makes the great companies. You know, might it be in terms of performance or in terms of people fulfillment, because whenever you work in an environment, then you feel like the culture is a fit with who you are, then you're more likely to feel comfortable, and there is a correlation between how people feel at work and the way they perform. So the thing is, building a great culture in a company is not only about buying pocket ball or baby food. It's really brought by leadership. And in this moment, when you are facing such a storm and everybody experience a very legitimate stress, and because I mean, we are talking in a time that it's not just an economic crisis. But, I mean, some people are getting in hospitals, and I will not just inform you about what just happened, but yeah, so they have a very legitimate stress. And at this moment, according to the way you react, you can either strengthen your culture, you can really carry on your leadership, or you can totally tear apart your company, according to the decision you make. And for example, we saw some companies around us that had some cash flow before them, and they just reacted. They just felt like financially and like accountants, and they just decided to stop moving and see what happened. They had cash flow in front of them, but this is quite terrible because the absence of reaction in this kind of atmosphere, it's leaving people alone without leadership. And it's not like they can go on an island for pay leaves, and it's not a nice holidays. It's like very limited things that you can do. You're just alone with your anxiety. And at this moment, if you just think accounting and you miss the human part, then you totally destroy something in your company that you will have a very hard time to bring back. Like, if I take, for example, for us, in France, the government been sending out help for the companies, financial help to help them stand still and not crash. And we could have said, okay, so let's put the team on paid leaves, and we have enough cash flows to maybe the 3 next months, and we will see what happens. But the problem is, in our time, if you choose this option, first you leave people alone, so the relationship you have with them is never the same. And the second danger of this adaptation, which is like for me the greatest thing, is that okay, today we know roughly where we are with the coronavirus. As you said, in Korea, it seems that it's already overcome, but we have in fact, we have very little information about all that. You know, I mean, what happened if a second wave happened? What happened? You know, I read some studies, because I'm not the kind of people who try to invent himself epidemiologist on Facebook, but I read reviews, and some reviews they are talking about you know, the necessity of putting a confinement every 3 months, because the thing will come in waves again and again. And so I'm not saying that's what will happen, but this is something we should be ready for. And if your strategy is just to brace and lay on the side and wait for it to pass, I think that's a very bad adaptation to disruption in general.
I see. Okay, so yeah, I understand the very important aspect of company culture and the importance of leadership, not to leave the employees and the members of the company alone. And I do agree that it's very important to accompany your employees to facilitate the going back to business after all this is done. But in terms of concrete action, can you tell us a few examples of how you prepared for this, or how you adapted in order to not leave your employees alone and really prepare for what could come next?
Yeah. Yes. So I think maybe what is interesting is to start with how we saw the crisis coming. Because normally now I'm locked in France, but normally I'm working in Korea. And at the time I was in Korea, I was in Korea at the very moment that the crisis was something in Korea, you know. And I saw the reaction of the people, the reaction of the government, which you know, I could see at this moment that Korean people are like very disciplined, and they are very cooperative when something like this happens. But despite all that, I saw the incredible rise in terms of cases. And when I heard about the first cases in France, I was, you know, I'm proud about a lot of things in France as a French person, but discipline and collaboration, I mean, you're in the wrong place, right? We know that. And so when I see that the outbreak was starting in France, I called immediately the company, and so I called the headquarters in France and says like, okay, well, this is what is happening in Korea, and in France, I can tell you we're not ready for this. And so this is something that is really in our DNA, that when we have an information in the economic background, we act on it, because that's our work. Our work is to always adapt and adapt and adapt, doing short cycles of everything and adapting quickly to the events. So as soon as I communicate this information to the company, they didn't wait for the government to make any announcement. But we started to plan how we will work in remote, how we will handle all the organization, the workflow. And this is the first thing that actually saved us, because unlike some companies that were like hoping for the best and just arrived in front of the wall at the end, the day of the confinement, and had to do everything in the emergency, we had time to plan it. So we had like no stress. We planned the remote work, we planned everything, and so it avoided a lot of technological failure, a lot of security failure, like a lot of failure in general. And also we had time to prepare the people, to talk them through what will happen, and this also served the leadership, because we could talk people through things that would happen later, which happened to be true. So this is the first way we adapt, is by always monitoring what is happening and always acting upon it. This is very important. Then after, once we have all the organization part that was pretty much figured out, we've been to the human part and how we will organize the workflow. So we started to make daily meetings. They happen at midday in the French time. So what we are doing with these meetings is we are having a very transparent communication on everything which is happening on the roadmap as it evolves. We have to know that at Germinal we have like a full transparency in the company. It goes so far that every employee of the company can check every salary of everyone. Like we are very super transparent. We can check the accounting, the everything. So we keep the people updated on whatever is happening, where we're going, and trying to de-dramatize the situation, trying to see if everybody feels easy, and trying to go and move forward as a team, like really to live together as a team. So this and we had also the 30-minute meetings per team, like per department in the morning, to talk through the workflow, the workload, and organize the day. So then once we had all the company set up together, the thing is we just saw how all our orders drop. And at this moment we thought like, okay, that's cool, everybody's happy, but now as a company, perhaps we need to make money, you know, that will be useful. And so what we decided to do is we called our customers who cut the campaigns and were willing to start them over after the confinement. And we proposed them to execute all the production now. So when the confinement is over, they are first to start, you know, so they don't have to, you know, they don't have any jet lag or anything. So with this strategy, we brought ourselves about like 2 weeks. And for 2 weeks, we had work. But after 2 weeks, we knew that we had almost nothing anymore, and still employees to give something to do. So what we decided is to totally pivot. We thought that at this moment the people, they are isolated, they're at home, they are bored, and it's a good opportunity, for example, for education, for learn new skills. So what we did is we slowly take our production team, and slowly we shifted 50% of our production team into a new business, a new side project, which was building online trainings in terms of growth and marketing, with all the internal skills we have, all the learnings we have on the market. So we built a team that was working to launch the trainings online, and we had we left like a 7 days deadline. So in case it's not the right fit, we still can make a pivot, you know. So we set up small squad that were working together, and with like a one day daily production review and feedbacks. And with this methodology, because we have a methodology which is really adapted to test project really quick. And this is how we launched new trainings that now are working quite well, and are saving the activity. And the last thing we did is a bit more social, is to still keep together as a team, and because we are a team, but we're also old friends, because we have a very like-minded people in the company. And it's funny because they come from very different background. But so we did what we call the Jeremy games. So it's like one night per week we are gaming together. We have like a video conference, and we can like play games and try to beat each other. And then we can sometimes we even like have a drink together, which is really nice, because when you are locked alone, it's very cool to have like a link with people and social activity. I mean, it's just a bit weird when you like close your laptop and you're alone drunk in your living room, but apart from that, it's a very nice thing that we set together to socialize.
For sure, I understand. Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I think it's very important to have a very strong sense of communication within a team, and making sure that everyone stays involved in these complicated times, even though you're stuck at home on your own. It's very important that everyone feels involved and everyone feels challenged. And I think it's very interesting what you did about the shifting 50% of your team to super short deadlines and testing. So it's very interesting. And you mentioned also so your adapted methodology of testing. So I think that's very interesting, but this sounds very similar to what you could do with the process of launching new projects for your clients. Could you tell us maybe more about how you usually work with your clients?
Yeah. The way we launch the trainings is definitely similar to the way we work with clients. It's today we talk about coronavirus. So yeah, it's a thing. But as I say, coronavirus, the coronavirus, we don't really know if we are over yet or not with it. But this coronavirus is not the only disruptive. Is not the only disruptive factor which is threatening business today and tomorrow. And that's also why I think waiting for it to pass is not a good strategy. It's because I think we're living in a very different world from like 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, I was not really in business 15 years ago, but I can see the different way that companies evolve. And now we are in an environment where the accessibility, the accessibility to the knowledge, to marketing solution, to a codeless solution, to launch a project or launch business, they're very accessible to everyone. And those solutions are really changing the game. So we pass from a world where, from kind of a capital paradigm, where the big company were very safe because they were like here for a long time. They had the capital, and it took a lot of money to launch a project. It took a lot of expertise, but now the expertise and the money, you don't need it anymore, because you have a very cheap solution to launch something fast, and very methodology to launch something fast, and the expertise is accessible everywhere. So it's kind of now we are much more in a data paradigm, where anyone with a laptop could just possibly send the next big disruptive thing, just because he's more aggressive, just because he's more hungry and he moves faster. So and just because the tools, like for example the marketing tools that we have today, enable us to go from a linear growth to exponential growth, as we can see now. The companies like the top startups that drive growth that have never been seen before, and all in the same kind of period. So we see that here we have something that enables somebody to start really small and to really disrupt an economy just by going hard with the right execution on the right project at the right time. So this is kind of the approach we take when we launch a project. We really focus on the action that matter to get it started, and we forget about the rest, which is like administration, or like even setting up the project. For example, if you want like if you want the example, you have to look at the way we how to say, like the way the company have a internal project in their innovation department sometimes, or even like an individual entrepreneur who have a lot of project, and always wait for they always wait for the great moment, for the great way to have the perfect thing to launch. But when the people that are doing that, what they are doing is they prevent themselves to try something faster, to get inside for the market, and likely to improve their product, to improve their offer. And instead of that, they spend months or weeks or months and sometimes more to build the perfect financial plan, the business plan on 5 years. All those forecasts, which sometimes can be proven a big flop in less than a week when you launch the product in the market. So this is what we try to avoid. As now, for example, we have the lean startup methodology, which is undoubtedly the best way to launch a project. But still, we see all this bureaucracy, and we believe that large corporation, especially, not only but mostly large corporation, should really take inspiration from these methods and start to kind of reverse engineer the market fit process and focus by focusing on the right KPIs at the right time. So I'd say monitor your market, launch imperfect project faster to test the traction, because it's not the problem of the cash you're wasting when you're launching project, but it's much more the problem of the challenge is much more about velocity and keeping the pace in a market where you have like very aggressive entrepreneur who are attacking, you know. So if you like velocity today, eventually you'll survive COVID-19, but maybe you'll get hurt or die for the next disruption. So I think we have some question.
We do have a question, yeah.
Yeah. Based on several scenarios, best case or worst case, how will COVID impact your business in the next 6 months or 1 year? And what plan are you making to cope with it? And this comes from Gislin.
Okay, so right now, as we are monitoring what happened in the economy, what we do is we are conscious that the background of the market will change. We are conscious that the consumption habits will change because like you were talking about before, like the digital, I would say digital business. But you know, not now with the crisis, the people, even the jet-lag people, because in France we're not advanced like in Korea with all the technology that everybody is using, is not adopted by as much people. But if I take the example of online shopping, if I take the example of food delivery, services like that, now the crisis has kind of pushed the people into the innovation adoption curve, you know. So it's not like when the confinement is over. It's not like everything will just get back like usual, because now the people, they learn about the convenience, and we know that the people they're likely to get maybe a bit more isolated. The economy will be a bit more local, but still they will not give up on the convenience they found on the online consumption. That's what we plan. That's what we plan, and. So what we are doing now is we are trying to double down on the companies who are kind of how to say getting opportunity from COVID-19, and we know that mostly they are the companies who sell online, and for us it's much more an opportunity than a threat at that time. And what we but this is one assumption, and what I know about assumption is they sometimes happen to be wrong. That's why the main thing we are doing to make sure that we're still on the road in 6 months is that we are still monitoring whatever happens and still testing. Like we launch the training, and we try to launch like everything that we can spot in the economic background. We'll try to cope with it by launching things and testing things. If it's answer to the question or not.
I think it was pretty accurate of an answer. And it's very interesting that you mentioned this idea of velocity and adaptability and making sure that you monitor everything from your clients and from your own databases. And it's something I can definitely do the parallel with how web development and programming works and how it has evolved in the last 20 years. And that's a good example. For example, like big companies like IBM, years ago, they used to build big websites and develop and work on it for like 3 months and then deploy all of it at once. And of course, a lot of it was broken because it was such a big amount of work. And now small startups, they deploy a week and a week and a week, and that way they have more and more feedback and monitoring, and then it helps them with their velocity. But can you give us maybe, I might be talking too much in technical terms, but can you give us a few examples of what lean startup means for people that are not very familiar with the term?
Yeah, yes, of course. If I take an example, maybe I can take our example because I was talking about how we launched the trainings and how we pivot 50% of our workforce on training. So maybe it's a good example to take. when we launched the training programs, we launched a really wide panel of trainings. We had like HR, like how to find a job in a startup by our HR that was making the training, like Google Ads training, Facebook trainings, landing page, copywriting. We had various type of trainings. So the wrong idea, I mean, the wrong way of doing so will be to do it traditionally. Like we will take all the workforce, we will set the training, record the training, like build all the trainings, and then it will probably take us a lot of time. And if we are wrong when we launch them to the market, at this moment we don't have any time to pivot. So we totally burn our opportunity, and this is what we want to avoid at any cost. So what we did is to be able to jump in another option in case it didn't work. Is first we measure the traction on the market with pre-orders. So basically, it's simple. Is we launch an acquisition campaign on online trainings, and the people, they can pre-order. And by this way, we can know like if it's working, if it's financially making sense, and also we can spot the trainings that are actually working out, that the people actually want, and what we should do first. And we also can spot the training which actually didn't find any market, because some of the trainings that we launched out really performed very well, and some of the training we proposed didn't perform. So it would have made very little sense to record them for nothing. So once it's pre-order, not only we know that people want those trainings, and so we build it, but we also know which trainings, and we also know which format applies and fit with people. But this methodology, it can also be used in development and also be used in product development, because if you propose people to register to your tool before it's even built, first you ensure that you are building something that people will use, that's kind of mandatory to grow a company. But also you are sure that you are focusing on the right features at the right time, and you address the right needs from your audience.
Very interesting. So I think we're getting towards the end. We're trying not to be too long with this webinar. So again, if you in the audience have any questions, feel free to write in the Q&A bar, and I'm sure Alain will make a pleasure to answer you. So in terms of post-COVID, and once we can safely say we'll be out of this crisis, what are the lessons that you've learned from all of everything that happened?
The lessons we learned, or maybe we relearned, I think first we very reinforced our certitude that moving forward is the key. For example, when we saw the crisis happening, we saw all the big corporation cutting everything, because they were like on a panic, and they just like didn't want to make a move. By doing so, what they didn't figure out is they actually leave a window for smaller actors that until here were not performing super well, and which actually get some market share at this moment. We had, for example, we work with some startups in the makeup industry, and just because the conversion rate in makeup industry in online shopping just dropped. So when the crisis and the drop of the conversion rate, all the big actors, all the big players in the advertising space, they shut down all their campaigns. So what happened is less competition means the advertising is cheaper, and just because they all cut, the drop in terms of cost of advertising totally overcame the drop in conversion rates. And so we ended up with makeup startups that actually make a super good results thanks to the fact that others were not moving. So I think this moving forward and being bold in time of crisis, I think it's the biggest lesson we have.
Interesting. So you were mentioning also the huge rise and drop depending on companies in online consumption and online shopping. Do you think this crisis will impact the consumption and the consumption patterns in the long term?
So yes, I mean, at least in Europe, definitely. I think it will. It's gonna impact in several ways our consumption. I mean, as I tell you, with the crisis, we have the remote work, which is really becoming something. And we experienced that when the remote work is coming, like the people, they're at home and they start to have a very different consumption habits, a lot more of online consumption and through it all the day, and not at some very specific time as before. So I think that this is one of the things which is going to change, because the companies that went remote, for example, us, we are remote now, of course, because it's quarantine and we cannot do otherwise. But after the crisis, we're gonna keep being a remote organization. It's gonna now the office we have is not mandatory anymore. It's gonna be a place that people can go when they want to meet the team, when they want to work with other people, but it's not mandatory anymore. Germinal is going full remote. So I talked before when Gislin was asking his question, I talked about the online consumption, about the evolution. So this is, I think, something that will change forever, because all the jet lag people are now into online shopping, into online consumption. And once you test it, because it's so convenient, they are likely to stick. That's true. I think one of the other thing which is very interesting to note is, at least in France, and I think in Korea is the same, but I don't have enough data to assume it. But in France, we really figure out we really figure out how dependent we are from China, and with the difficulty of China to provide, because China was also experiencing its crisis. We really understood the danger of being so dependent on another big producer, and I think the economy, as I said before, will go more local, will grow more local. This is something that I really believe. I might be wrong, but I really believe it. And last but not least, what is important is also the positive impact, because aside of all the negative things, the coronavirus crisis had a really positive impact, and especially the human lockdown on pollution and on wildlife, on ecology. And I think many have noticed that when you see the kind of the nature, the animals coming back to the cities. In France, I hear birds. I mean, it's been I don't hear birds since I'm a kid, right? And just like I rediscover that we are not alone here. And I think that this is something that we should really take into consideration, and I hope we will.
Wow, a very beautiful message. I hope the world hears you.
I hope too.
We're gonna.
Just not hear us.
This one hear us. We're gonna take some questions now, if you want. So don't hesitate to put them directly in the chat so that we can answer them, or in the Q&A. But
it's awesome. Oh, here's one.
Okay, so from Alexi. Now that all your team work full remote, do you plan to keep this working environment, or do you see day-to-day limitation with it? So this is on remote work and your experience.
Yeah. As I said, the company is going for remote forever. Why? It's because when we started to work for remote, at the beginning was a bit complicated to organize everything. But little by little, we experience better quality of production, and we figure out that the people, they are staying at work, they're leaving work earlier. So it seems that the people, they are kind of really adapting well to this new environment. And the other thing which is interesting is, as for example, myself and a few other were already remote workers, it enabled us to be very more integrated in the communication of the company, because before, I mean, the communication was okay, but because now everybody is remote, there is not one information we miss anymore. So I think this, for us, is really a system that works. And I think, I mean, we were talking just before with my last message about ecology, and I mean, I think remote work is kind of the future of work. You know, it's when you go for remote work, you don't have to take your car anymore. When you go for remote work, you know, it limits like the transit, it limited the consumption of petrol, it limits the time you spend in the transportation to have more time for yourself. So yeah, of course we go for remote.
Okay. Do you see this this kind of remote work pattern working for bigger corporations? How do you handle remotely the hiring process, for example?
Yeah, so I'm not hiring people myself. I'm not the one in charge of that. I think I think actually, yeah, the hiring process is something that is we plan to do it physically still. So maybe it's gonna change, because I haven't shared that much with our HR at the moment. But I don't have a solution for everything yet. For a big corporation, I mean, yes, it's possible, because now they're doing it. So they're adapting. I think it's been a bit harder for them, because their infrastructure, they are kind of heavier, and they have a lot of technology debt, which needs to be, you know. So whenever you have a system which is a bit old and is inside, which is the case for some banking systems, it's kind of okay, because there is no connection with the outside. But once you start to open once you start to open your system to the outside, because you have workers, it obviously brings some challenge in terms of security. So I don't think that it's as easy for big corporation as for small, but I think it's something we can move forward to little by little.
And I just want to say something. It's interesting that you're bringing up the remote work, because we're working actually with Alain and the rest of the French Tech team here in Seoul to do another webinar on remote work, security, and the different experience from startups and big corporation. So keeping
definitely
stay tuned. We're probably going to have another webinar about it. So we have another question from Alain. Okay, it's in French, I'm going to translate. On the long term, what do you think about the possibility of an economic crisis? How this break in business are going to affect world economy? And do you think there's going to be a big economic recess after COVID-19?
Okay, you know, my field of expertise is much more about acquisition than economy. But in my humble opinions, and I think we're going to face something, of course, because many people just lost their job, because now we are not just in front of a monetary crisis, we are in front of a real production crisis, because the people are not producing anymore, and so we have like we have a variation of in terms of volume of supply, and for still the same demand. So because the confinement, and I don't know how long it will last, so I think we are going to face hard times, and I think because we are going to face hard time, it's you know, when an economy is shifting, opportunities are born, and at this moment, that's why I was talking of the importance of adaptation, the importance of test, the importance of velocity, and the importance of moving fast, because that's the way you can take advantage of a crisis rather than being crushed by it.
Very, very insightful. And from the previous questions that was asked by Abla, I have another question that came in mind. How do you embrace the asynchronicity. So for example, you were mentioning that you are based most of the time in Korea. How do you embrace, because we're all going to be working more and more remote, how do you adjust with working with people who are not in the same time zones as you?
You mean when I work together with the French team from Korea? What we do is we try to plan everything which is from my workload. We try to plan it like 24 hours earlier. And so whenever there is like an issue and we need to communicate, then we have like 24 hours advance, and we still have like 2 or 3 hours that we can communicate intensely. And during these 2 hours, for example, now that I'm opening the country, and we're now 2 people. Before I was alone, and the 2 hours that we have in common with friends is that I have full permission to disturb anyone, and I am the main priority of the company. It's my 2 hours of fame, you know. It's my 2 hours of big ego. Yeah.
Okay.
There is no question. I'm going to ask mine, actually. You said that you saw a difference between how the big corporations and smaller businesses or startup reacted, and mostly online, because smaller players were starting to become more visible because bigger players were stopping their activity. Those big players saw that they were getting less visibility, and that other players were taking their place. And if yes, how did they react to that?
You know, I on that, they're still like not moving really fast. You have a few of them. It's not all the big corporation. We are working with some banks who are going like a full lean startup and launch projects with like kind of fake brands to try to see if the project's working, not working. We have some people who start to understand the importance of this methodology. But you still have a large amount of huge corporations which are kind of led by very traditional people who do very traditional business, and I think they feel a bit too safe. They feel a bit too safe because of their position, and I think they still don't realize what exponential means, and I think they don't realize how fast a small actor can take over the economy, and I hope that this crisis will be a kind of a wake-up call for them, because things are moving during this crisis. So I think it's going to be a wake-up call. But for now, yeah, I think still they have too much of this false sense of security in general.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
From Abla, how do you handle still remote work? How do you handle working from home from an HR point of view? In case, for example, an employee doesn't have an adequate place to work in their home.
Okay, so post-confinement, we still have an office in Paris, and the people who want to work in the office are welcome to work in the office. There is no limit of anything. The office is available for everyone. When we are in a period of confinement, until here we didn't have this problem with no one, and actually you cannot leave your home, so it's not that there is much we can do. But for what is related to remote work, we have the office at disposition, and if there is somebody who is not living in Paris, we also talk about co-working spaces, renting a space in co-working spaces, so the people, they can have a place to work. That's the idea. Because the idea of because now we're growing quite fast. The company started in March 2018, and in the last 4 months we hired 14 people. So we are growing quite fast. and we were going to take a bigger office. But what we decided is to keep the money that we would spend on the rent, and we use that to do what we do every 3 months. We have actually a company trip. Then we can go to another country. We can go to the mountain all together and talk together about the future of the company, and enjoy also to be together and work with like a slower pace. And we will use that money to have like maybe a more fancy trips. But this money that we're saving is also something that is actionable for a co-working space for the people who need it, for example.
Another question from Alexi. Do you think South Korea could be the next Silicon Valley tech hub because of their better administration of the COVID than US or Europe?
So this is gonna be very personal, but I think in terms of technology and quality of engineering, the South Korea totally has the potential to become the next Silicon Valley because of some engineering that I can see here. But I think that in terms of acquisition, in terms of growth, for example, I think they're not aggressive enough. They are way too traditional, and I think that's something. It's not impossible, but I think Korea has to step up on the way they are attacking the market. I mean, you don't go to a fight with Airbnb and Uber by doing like as I say, by doing like a 5-year forecast with this panel with like okay, we are up here because we have the best offer, and it takes to be like very aggressive. So if Korean entrepreneurs get more aggressive, yeah, I think it's possible.
Yeah, it also goes back to what you were saying about velocity and adaptability. I think this is one thing that is missing in the overall Korean market in terms of tech, at least. There really is that domination of traditions and big corporations that, as you said, feel very safe and comfortable and maybe are not aggressive enough in the way they try to change things, or maybe they don't even try to change things. So yeah, definitely I agree with what you said.
Just to continue, just to wrap up on this one, on the tech and startup side, maybe not to the point of being Silicon Valley, but definitely the image of South Korea is changing in terms of administration, reaction, administration, but also tech, because most of the big startups that are like the test and everything that is done here by startups are now getting sales and getting FDA and everything. So now South Korea has a really bigger and more positive image on tech and on reaction to a crisis, and that's definitely going to change something. Maybe not to the point of being Silicon Valley, but that's definitely going to be a positive change for the vision of South Korea in the future. If some of you all have other questions, we can wait a little bit, but then it's almost time. And it's great because we managed to do everything in 1 hour. So I'm not seeing any other questions. So maybe we can wrap up here.
Sure, I think so.
Alain, is there any other things you want to mention really quick before wrapping up?
No, just yeah, I was quite happy to talk about this topic. I think the question were very interesting as well. Might be yours or the one we had in the panel. I mean in the chat, and so I had a good time, good pleasure, and looking forward to meet you guys in Korea soon.
Yeah, we're looking forward to you coming back whenever you can. Well, thank you very much, Alain, for giving us all your insights. I think a lot of a lot of what we've learned is about adaptability, monitoring, making sure you follow with a close eye everything that's happening in the world, in the business, in the marketplace, making sure that you have the means and the motivation to move on quickly from what you think is the best solution, and also the future solutions of remote working and everything that seems very, very inevitable in these times will surely become very, very common in the next years. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Make sure to follow us on all our social media with French Tech Seoul, and to be sure that we give you a lot of, we'll try to give you as many as possible of these webinars to give you a lot of insight on the Korean market and the global market as well.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for all your questions. It's been great. And yeah, as all the guys said, we're gonna have more webinars. Maybe in Korea we'll be able to meet up.
Maybe.
Let's hope. And we definitely are waiting for you, Alain, to come back. And yeah, let's wrap up for today and see you guys very soon. Bye.
Thank you.